have a bunch of people on here. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to give a warm welcome to our host today, Derek Shea. He is the founder of a local doggy daycare, the Doggy Dudes, which is in Deerfield, and our latest pet partnership at Chalet. So we are so happy to welcome him and grateful that he's here to present this topic to us. So I'm going to hand it over to him. We will be doing a Q&A at the end. So we welcome all questions. If you have any questions, please just write them in the bottom under the Q&A or the chat, and Derek will get to those at the end. So just keep those questions for the end and we'll get to those. I'll pass it over to you, Derek.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So my name is Derek Shea, as Carly had mentioned. I run a local dog daycare in Deerfield. It's called the Doggy Dudes. This topic in general, post-COVID-19 schedules, separation anxiety is definitely a huge topic right now. So I am fortunate enough to host this e-learning, pulling things from my own experience, from things I know online, from speaking with vets, trainers, just years in the business. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have this conversation. So I have a slideshow put together of kind of things, how you pick up on whether or not your dog has separation anxiety. I'll pull from my own experience. I'd love to hear from other people's experience to try and see if I can help. And then we can go from there. So I will start sharing my screen where we have a presentation I'll just go through. And like Carly said, I'll answer all the questions at the end and we can go from there. All right. Okay. All right. So our topic today, obviously, is helping pets deal with post-COVID-19 changes in schedule and separation anxiety. These are some of our dogs at daycare. They're so cute. All right. Perfect. So does your pet freak out when you leave? This is something to really tell whether or not your dog has separation anxiety. Does your pet seem to worry when you're heading out? I know, for instance, my dog in particular has pretty bad, severe separation anxiety. So anytime I put on cologne, he'll jump up on me and is wondering where I'm going. When you leave, do your dogs destroy things when you leave? I know, again, my dog will flip over his water bowl or his food bowl. And so that's kind of another tell that he's kind of having some anxious thoughts. Do they follow you from room to room? This is a big one. My dog will follow me everywhere just to make sure he knows where I'm going. Do they go crazy when you get home? This is like, it's more so you recognize your dogs get excited when you come home. But this is more so, they're like, the freak out is almost, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you left me. Oh my God, thank you for being back. So if any of these apply to you, your pet may be dealing with minor or severe separation anxiety, and we're gonna kind of go into that. Oops. Let's see. There we go. What causes separation anxiety? So your pet's behavior is due to a panic response. When you leave, it's because your pet wants you to be home, and that elicits this panic response. So for the most part, if you have a new pet, you're a first-time dog owner, or you have passed with a pup and you're getting a new one and they're being left alone for the first time, this is definitely it can trigger separation anxiety because they're not used to it. They've never been left alone before. Being left alone when they are accustomed to constant human interaction. I mean, hello, this is really just pulling off COVID. So, we've all been working from home. And our dogs have just grown accustomed to being around us. And so when they're left alone after having that consistent interaction, they're confused. And this can onset separation anxiety. And again, if you're a new time pet owner, this can definitely cause separation anxiety with your dog. Traumatic past experiences are huge, especially in rescue. Triggering events from the shelter or a kennel. Shelters are one thing. You don't know necessarily where the dog's past has been or anything like that. Speaking directly from rescue, from a rescue standpoint, you don't know what their past was, what their home life was, or anything like that before you got them necessarily. So having them, well, a vet explained to me this perfectly when I was asking her about my separation anxiety with my dog. She said, you were probably the first loving home your dog has had. So of course, when you leave, they don't know what to do because you're the first loving home that they had. They just get all nervous. So that's something, you don't know what they had in their past. And then again, if you're boarding your dog, or for instance, your dog was sick and they had to stay overnight at the vet, Nothing towards the the boarders or the kennel or the vets. I'm sure they're doing everything great, but sometimes just being away from you and being around strangers can trigger separation anxiety. And again, change in routine. Obviously, now that people are going back in the office, that's definitely a change in the routine. They're used to going outside on their walks with you, and now they're not doing that. Or loss of family member, including pet loss. This is the big one. Loss of family member. It's just a change of the routine. Now they don't see that family member. For instance, my family dog was so used to me being, when I lived with my parents, she was so used to me being there that after I left, it was almost like she went into a depressive state. And, as crazy as it sounds, dogs do have emotions. They feel things, they react to things. Pet loss is a huge thing. I have a client with me who their dog had come to daycare and he was so happy, very talkative, and then he lost his brother, and there was a switch. Now he's very attached to his mom, and this is a great example of a loss affecting the dog so much that it now causes separation anxiety. Okay, moving on here. So treating minor separation anxiety. So for those of you the dogs aren't going crazy, you can kind of leave them home, but they may whine a little bit. This is kind of how to combat that. So this is a little touch and go for me, this first bullet point. Establishing a word or action that you use every time you leave that signals to your pet that you'll be back. This is a little touch and go for me. Obviously, if you're establishing a word to let your dog know that you're going, maybe that will help them ease the separation anxiety. But for me personally, if I was to establish a word, then I feel that will cause my dog to react more now that he knows that I'm signaling to him that I'm leaving. So all this information is very subjective, given your own experiences. But I'm including these bullet points in here because they work for some people and not work for others. This, for instance, for me doesn't necessarily work for me, given what I just explained about the fact that I just think it would signal him that I'm leaving, and it may cause it to be worse. This is a hard one for me personally, this next bullet point. As hard as it is, try not to make a big deal when you're coming home or leaving. Saying, all right, bye. Again, it's almost like the first bullet point. It's almost like acknowledging now that you're leaving, and that causes more anxiety versus when you're coming home. And like I said, there's differences between them being excited to see you and them freaking out so much that it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you left me. This is hard for me because when my dog, I always want to make my dog feel like he's okay. So when he does this with me and he gets really excited when I come home, I kind of lay into it. So it's an issue on my part that I should be better at, but it's definitely a hard thing. So sometimes if you're just able to just let them calm down before you interact with them or pet them, that'll sometimes help alleviate the fact that dealing with minor separation anxiety. Trying giving your dog like warm clothes or items that smell like you that can comfort them, blankets, toys, etc. Obviously, the dogs live in your home, so they already have smells and everything around them, but something that they very much favor to leave them there with is always a good thing. Busy toys are huge. Busy toys are like frozen Kong, treat puzzles, lick-it mats, all things in the next slide I have pictures of and have examples of. Using over-the-counter calming products, and these are things that are natural, so like calming bites, which contain melatonin, chamomile, and hemp or CBD drops. Those are products that you can use. And then music and TV, this is like a yes or no thing. This is all up to preference. For me personally, I like to leave on music really low, nothing that's super crazy, just very calming music. I just like to fill the air because I know at home, if I'm working or if I'm watching TV, that is just noise that is in the background while my dog, let's say, rests. So the fact that there's no noise going on almost to me seems like that would cause more anxiety. But again, some people will say that's not true. They need time to kind of relax and be in their own space. But personally, I like to put music or TV on just so there's some to fill the negative noise. Let's see. All right, so these are the busy toys I was talking about. So busy toys are toys that can keep your pets occupied for a small period of time while you're away or keep them distracted. when you leave for the first time. So like I said, a Kong is just a rubber product. Kong is great. They're a great brand. They have a small hole inside them. You can fill with peanut butter. You can fill with any kind of substance that's good for dogs, and just give them a task to do so that when you're leaving, it's something they can focus on for at least 30 minutes to an hour. Lick-it mats are another thing along the same lines of a Kong. You pretty much spread whatever you want on there and just have them have a task and lick that. And then these are just the next one is just a puzzle. I don't use these. I just think my dog will go through it too quickly. And it doesn't really give them that much of a task to do. Whereas, obviously food motivated things are a little bit better. All these products, anything that you want to use that give them like a Kong or a Lick-it mat, I would recommend putting that in the freezer, just because that allows the dog to spend more time on that job of licking the Kong or licking the Lick-it mat. So I would recommend putting that in the freezer just so it takes them a little bit longer to get through it and won't necessarily recognize you leaving. Another one, Busy Toys. I'm going to read off my notes here because Busy Toys and over-the-counter calming products. So calming products help calm your pet's mind while you're away. Calming products will typically contain chamomile, melatonin, hemp, and other calming additives. You definitely want to do your research on this. Some things can be better than others. I, for instance, use Zesty Paws Calming Bites off Amazon. It's pretty affordable to use. They just contain, it's like a treat. They contain chamomile, melatonin, and hemp, all things that are natural and help ease them. This is great in multiple situations. So if you're leaving, this help alleviate some of that anxiety that they have by just calming them down naturally, versus, let's say just medicine or anything like that. This is also good if you go out to a party, or you're hosting an event where multiple people are coming over to the house. You can kind of give these to kind of mellow out your dog. These are really great. I love these. This is the next one is a Chalet product. It's called Bocce's Bakery. They also use chamomile in there as well. Another just calming additive. The next one is Chill by Mount Ara. It's like a peanut butter spread. So couple that with, let's say, that Lick-it mat or the Kong. So you get both the aspect of having them do a task while you're leaving, and then on top of that, just something that calms them down. Is actually a great combination that I've used, and it's worked really well. And the next one is your traditional CBD. I'm not super well versed in CBD, but Chalet puts out a bunch of CBD products that are really great. And this one in particular is actually sold out because they sell out so many of them. This in particular, you administer it orally. You do about half a droplet per 25 pounds. And then you do that twice daily. I'm not sure, like I said, this is where the research comes into play. I don't necessarily use that, but it is a good tool to have if you don't want to use the calming bites or the peanut butter or anything like that. It's definitely a good thing to have on hand if you want to use that for anxiety. Okay, so moving on here. So treating severe separation anxiety. So this is where my dog comes into play. He has severe separation anxiety. So coupled with the tips and tricks for minor separation anxiety, using desensitizing training is huge. So desensitizing training is where you leave for short increments of time, working yourself up until the dog is okay by itself. So for instance, if you have a puppy, or if you have a dog an older dog that has been with you for a while, and since the work from home is now experiencing some kind of separation anxiety, leaving them for, let's say 30 minutes, this is more for the puppies, but for leaving them for 30 minutes at a time, then pushing yourself up to an hour at a time, that will usually help. So it just desensitizes them. Doing that often. This does take patience. I mean, it really does take patience. Desensitizing training takes a lot of patience. So it is definitely something to do. Just letting them be by themselves for short periods of time is always a good thing. Teach and reteach basic commands. This is pretty good if for you at home. So easy things to teach your dog: sit, staying down. So when they sit, staying down, they are actively sitting or staying in a certain place, and they are calm in that place. So you want to make sure your dog is sitting calmly. And the goal of this is to make sure that your dog can sit, stay, or lay down in a certain place in your home while you're able to go from room to room to room without them following you. This establishes the fact that okay, you may be going into another room in your house, you may be going into the bathroom, but your dog doesn't need to freak out because you are still in the home with them. They don't necessarily need to see you, but they still acknowledge that you were in the house, and just reteaching these basic commands is always a good thing. Create safe places to limit destructive behavior while you're away. This will have probably a lot of different thoughts from others. You know, there's two different things you can do. A lot of people are conditioned to believe that crating is the best thing because dogs' history is they create little burrows and that's their safe place. So we should create the crate as a safe place and drape a towel or a blanket over it, and that can be their safe place. As I said before, this is all subjective, so whatever works for you, and some may not work for others. Typically what people will recommend, and what I have found is I don't necessarily like putting my dog in the crate, because for him, it just makes him, it just gives him more anxiety, especially with it being dark. It feels way more isolating. So no total isolation, you know, is what I would do. Loosely confined spaces where there's some sort of light in, you know, maybe it's cornering them off in the kitchen or having them in this specific room. Obviously, with that, you may experience things as the dog scratching at the door, things like that. And obviously, we don't want to put them in a situation where, one, they could get injured, and two, have it cause a headache for everyone where, you know, you have to repaint the door or do all this stuff because they're scratching and digging. You know, that's obviously an issue, and why a lot of people lean more towards the crate. But, you know, any of these options should contain busy toys in them, should also contain used clothes, toys, blankets, things that give them safety cues. For instance, you know, a lot of times at daycare, and in general at my house, I'll give my dog something that I don't mind, you know, them beating up, because if they get anxiety, obviously they start going for our shoes, they go for our furniture, and that's definitely something we all don't want. So, you know, giving them something you won't necessarily mind if it gets ripped up, but as a comfort to them is always a good thing, and gives them a safety cue, something to smell, something that smells like you, so that they are able to, you know, still get the feeling that you were there. All right, moving on. So be patient with your pets while it learns. It will take time for your pet to unlearn their panic response for when you leave. So trying to help them cope with short-term solutions is always a great thing. Obviously, there's the more affordable options, like leaving your dog with a friend or family when you're away. This is always a great thing if your dog's comfortable with them. Being able to leave them there is always great. You know, taking your dog to work with you if possible is always a great thing as well. Definitely those two options being more affordable. Obviously, the third point is my bread and butter. So I'm not going to make a sales pitch to everyone about why you should get into doggy daycare, but I do think it helps. And I'll tell you why. I just think that, you know, we have a lot of dogs that come in that were COVID puppies and or COVID dogs in general, and are just so used to their owners that the breakup of sending them with a dog walker, sending them with a daycare where they're able to just not even think about you, just be in a whole new environment, interacting with other dogs or just walking, is always a great thing to just kind of break up their day. Obviously, this is something you're paying into, but obviously as a daycare, I see the benefits of that. But I'm not gonna. If you're able to do the first two options, that's great. But obviously, doing the doggy daycare, having a walker, is always a great option. You know, socializing your dog is always a great thing to do as well. And then communicate with your vet about options, drug therapy and CBD. So I talk very much I talk a lot with my vet. So, you know, all these natural products, the calming bites and the CBD, are tested by vets. So, you know, for the most part, I know a lot of them that will lean towards trying the natural holistic approach versus the just throwing medication at first. In my experience with clients, when they're like, oh, well, should I give them anti-anxiety medication? I personally, again, more lean to just give them a calming bite, give them something with melatonin, chamomile, if you want them to calm down. Or if they're just acting so crazy in the day, when we take them for daycare, if they're just too crazy, and the owner wants to give them a calming bite, that's totally fine. There are scenarios where your dog just has general anxiety on top of separation anxiety, where communicating with your vet about that and taking anti-anxiety is a good option. But again, this is all about communication. I mean, they are, and what you're experiencing with your dog. So, obviously communicating with your vet, they know the most. They've done the schooling, they've done all this stuff to know all about your dog. So communicating with that with them is always a great thing. And definitely don't be afraid to tell them that you want to try out, CBD products or natural products like the calming bites before drug therapy, and just see what their thoughts are. I mean, if again, your dog better than let's say me, for instance, who takes them for daycare, or the vet who sees them every now and then. So, do what feels right to you. I like these products before I would recommend doing any kind of heart medication for them, unless they have really bad general anxiety. Let's see. All right, so what not to do. Punishment can make the situation so much worse, especially if the anxiety is due to traumatic experiences at kennels or shelters. Again, this is more so for the rescue dogs. If you start to punish your dog, you have no idea what their background is. So punishing them can lead to very bad things. Like, it can trigger PTSD related responses to what their previous environment was, and then worsen the anxiety on top of that, leading to aggression. All of us have our threshold for what we can tolerate in terms of, the dog howling, barking, and things like that. So it's easy to say, oh, well, don't punish your dog. But it's all about the patience with this certain situation, especially with separation anxiety, because again, leading into this next point, sorry, not getting into the next point, but the dog's having that response because it's being away from you. So punishing them is definitely not a great thing to do, because like I said, it can just make things really worse, and you don't want anything to lead to aggression. The last thing we want is to see dogs being surrendered because owners feel like they're at their wit's end. And so you have to be patient. So that's definitely one thing. Let's see, getting another pet. I'm guilty of this. I very much am guilty of this, and I'm actually on the other opposite end of the spectrum. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm speaking in singularity here. So I had 2 dogs, and now I have my 1 dog that I've had for a little while now. So sometimes getting another pet is good if that dog is playful and confident. Sometimes if you get a puppy, that dog can read your current dog and also develop separation anxiety, and then you can have a double trouble on your hand. But from my experience, I was guilty of this. So again, like I said, I have a dog who has severe separation anxiety, and I got another dog thinking, you know what, maybe this will help build his confidence. Maybe this will help him have a friend at home. And that just wasn't the case. It actually made him retract. It made him less confident. And it was just really not a great situation. And fortunately, I was able to find a really good family for that other dog. But it's a tough situation. And that I am an example of when it went wrong versus when getting another pet goes right. So this is, again, it's a subjective point to be had, but I wanted to give my experience because I am on the opposite end of the spectrum. But again, I still believe that getting another dog could help if that dog is confident and playful. However, in my situation, it just didn't. And again, we're back to the crating them. Again, this is probably going to be a heavy topic, just because we're all conditioned to believe that creating them is the best possible way we can do when we're gone, without them being destructive to the home, and creating a safe place for them. Again, another subjective point here. Creating is not always advised as a safe place because, speaking personally from experience, we use crating at the daycare, and they're not always perfect. Sometimes we'll have to file down some edges on crating because they're sharp, and that's why I lean more towards not crating my dog. And I also just want to give them a little bit more, what's the word? A little bit more run of the house, even if it's just in a certain room. So that's why I don't necessarily use crating, because they can injure themselves trying to get out. It can cause more anxiety, and then they can still howl or urinate and defecate. So that's definitely something that obviously we're trying to avoid, but Again, it's subjective. You can try it out. If it works for your dog, that's great. If it doesn't, you can try these other points. Obedience and training is definitely another one. So overall training is always a good idea. Your basic obedience training is always a good idea. However, separation anxiety is not due to disobedience or lack of training. It's being away from you. So I know a lot of times we try to just throw money at things and not necessarily have the patience for it. I know there are times where I'm at my wit's end and I'm like, I should just get a trainer. I should get a trainer to help, just help alleviate some of the stress off me. Because we're all busy, we're all working. Some of us have kids and things like that, and it can be a lot. And but in this scenario, it's you. Not he, but the dog is having a response to you being away. So it's your responsibility to kind of help alleviate them of that and make it so they're able to stay at the home by themselves. All in all, we're trying to give the best for our pets here. So this whole PowerPoint is just to kind of give some insight from my experience, and hopefully if you guys have any questions, I can answer for you from a daycare experience, from having experience in the industry. We just want what's best for our dogs, and our dogs are like our children. So, we want to see what's best for them. We obviously don't want to give them anxiety, and a lot of us are in situations where we're kind of stuck. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. And if I don't have the question necessarily, I can always ask any of my references and get an answer to you. But that's all I really have for this topic here. Here's Jackson. He's our cool little golden. But I would love to answer any questions now at this point, and we can kind of go from there. Sorry, I'm going to stop screen sharing. There you go. All right, looking here. So what is the best way? I'm going to start with the first one. What is the best way to figure out if your dog is suitable for dog daycare? For example, a dog may be fearful of other dogs or comes from a shelter and you don't know their history. This is a good question. So we take a lot of dogs that have no prior daycare experience. And what we do is it's a free trial. It's a temperament test. So what we do is we kind of slowly incorporate this new dog. We try to talk with the owners about what their dog's experience is with daycare in general. If they've been to a dog park, that's always a good thing. Or if they just had experiences with other dogs. Thinking about what I just said about dog parks, sometimes it's not always the best way because you don't know necessarily what other dogs are going in there with. And what their prior history is. So sometimes it's not the best way to get your dog acclimated around large groups of dogs. But for instance, for daycare, for me in particular, when I'm incorporating a new dog in, what I'll do is I'll give dogs who are kind of the same temperament. If they're fearful in the beginning, I'm going to give dogs that are very, very submissive. I'm gonna have that dog be with very submissive dogs who are also just kind of trying to figure each other out. And then once I feel comfortable with that dog, and maybe they'll start playing with other dogs, then I will start to incorporate them into our larger rings and see how they do there. A lot of times I run into the issue of the dog just being really fearful, but the owner really wanting the exposure of the socialization aspect for the dog. And that can kind of take some time. Like I said, that we do that temperament test, that free trial the first day. That's not always the most telling experience. So, it's not to say that they come the first time and are very anxious and very nervous, but the next 3 times that they come, they start to open up and come out of their shell. That's all dealing with rescue. That's all dealing with dogs who haven't necessarily been around other dogs or haven't been around dogs in general. So it's definitely can be a process, but if you go to a good daycare that can kind of help you and is willing to work with you, that's always a great thing. So moving on to this next question here. Any thoughts for cat guardians? I don't. I'm sorry. I will definitely look into this. Like I said, I have a lot of references, and I can definitely look into that for you and just kind of start to look at my vast knowledge of all that. So I apologize. Don't have the correct answer for you right there. Let's see. All right, so another question I'm seeing is, I was thinking of getting a trainer to help with my dog's separation anxiety, but I see you say not to. Why isn't a trainer an option I should explore? So this is a good question. You know, again, all the information is subjective, but like I was trying to reiterate in the last slide, there is the reason they're having this response is because they're away from you. And that just means that, if a trainer comes in, it's not necessarily, yes, they can help them, you know, train with basic obedience, but I don't necessarily think it's going to help them desensitize themselves to being alone or being away from you. So, again, it's an option you can try to explore. I'm just trying to look at it an affordability aspect where I just don't think that a trainer is really worth it, because it's something that the dog is a reaction from you being away. So it's something that you need to do. Okay. I'm seeing another one. Do you have any restrictions on dogs that can't come, age, or breed? I don't in particular. I don't discriminate against any of the dogs. I want to give a fair shot to all the dogs that come in. So like I said, I'm trying to pair dogs with dogs that they have the kind of the same temperament. So like I said, I like to try to communicate that with, trying to communicate with the client about what their dog is like, if they've taken them to a daycare before, if they've taken them to the dog park, if they've been around other dogs, what their experience is with that. Have they had any, what is the word? I had this dog yesterday. I'm just trying to figure out what it was. High prey drive. If they have a high prey drive, do they see squirrels and they're trying to go after them? Because that's definitely something with smaller. If you have a dog with a high prey drive around smaller dogs, that can be an issue. So I like to communicate that. Age is not a big thing for me either. If you think that, again, you know your dog better than I do. So if you think that your dog can come in and will be okay, then we will definitely try him out. We have a 13-year-old dog with us right now who has just, his hips are going a little bit. But he loves coming to daycare. He comes once a week and his brother comes twice a week. And when we go pick up his brother and it's just his brother, he gets up, he's so excited to go. And it's sad for us to not take him because he's just so excited to go, but we understand his limitations and his restrictions. So yeah, so hopefully I answered that question for you. Another question was recommendations for anxious dogs in the car. This is a good question as well. This is another part of like desensitizing training. So for me, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I have a daycare that does a pickup drop-off service. So what's good for me, and for instance, is that we are able to pick up dogs that are already in the car. So sometimes with that, the dogs don't necessarily get as anxious. But speaking from a personal aspect, or from a personal experience, if your dog's anxious in the car in general, just having them in either a crate, or sometimes they have, depending on the size of your dog, they have these carriers. So if it's a smaller dog that's anxious, you can have them in a carrier. That kind of helps them, make them feel safer. Sometimes dogs get so anxious they get sick in the car. This is where I think desensitizing training comes in great. When you take like 10-15-minute rides, that kind of helps, but also not necessarily every time the dog gets in the car. If you're going to the vet, if you're going to the groomer, any high stress environments that you're just taking your dog, the dog starts thinking that every time they go in the car, it's synonymous with a negative experience. So if you take them in the car to go to the park, that's a positive experience. If you take them to go, out to play in the car somewhere to play, that's always a positive experience. So that's why I think we have great success when we're taking in anxious dogs with ourselves. When we take them in ourselves, for the daycare, when we're putting them in the car, they start to recognize the fact that when we pick them up, they're going to play. So they start to just figure out that they're not anxious anymore and they're coming to a place to play. So like I said, just not having negative experiences when they get in the car is always a great thing. And then, it should be good from there. Another one I'm seeing is, please explain calming bites. Are they a specific product? Specific products you recommend? So calming bites are specifically They're not medication. They are just natural products. They contain like melatonin in them, which is natural, chamomile, which is very natural, and what did I say, melatonin and hemp, which is also a very natural thing. So those are all just products that kind of ease your dog's anxiety. And for instance, I use, what was it, Zesty Paws. Zesty Paws on Amazon, very easy. If you just look up Zesty Paws, they have a whole line of calming bites. And even if you looked on Amazon, you just said calming bites for dogs, there's a whole variety of them. So Zesty Paws is what I use. They pretty much just contain melatonin, chamomile, and hemp. And that's why I said when you're looking for, sorry about that, when you're looking for certain products, just do your research on them. If they contain the melatonin, hemp, and chamomile, those are always good products. And then the other ones I saw were the, let's see, the Bocce's Bakery from Chalet, and then Chill by Mount Ara. That's a little bit more expensive. That's the calming peanut butter. There's chamomile inside of that, and that will help kind of alleviate that anxiety. So those are some of the things that I use. Okay, so let me see. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll wait a couple minutes to see if we have any other questions here. Perfect. So I think we're good. So I appreciate everyone hopping on today. Hopefully you guys were able to take away something from this experience, or be able to apply something for yourselves. So thank you to Chalet for having me here. And yeah, if you guys are in the market for a daycare, by all means, I'm always available. So you can look us up on the Doggy Dudes or the doggydudes.net, and be happy to take anything for you. So I appreciate it again, guys. So thank you for hopping on today, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks.